Today we have a real treat. It's Alexander Wang of Scale AI. Jared, you worked with Alexander way back in the beginning, actually. What was that like? What year was it? Put us in the spot.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, most of what we want to talk about today is like what Scale is doing now, because like the current stuff is like so awesome and so interesting. Since Scale got started at YC, I thought it just seemed appropriate to start all the way at the start. And it's funny, Diane and I were at MIT last month talking to college students, and like of all the founders, the one that they like most look up to and like want to emulate is actually you. Like everybody wants to be the next Alexander Wang, because everybody knows the story of how you like dropped out of MIT and ended up starting Scale, but they don't know the real story. And so I thought it'd be cool to go back to the beginning and just talk about the real story of how you ended up dropping out of MIT and starting Scale.
So before I went to MIT, I worked at Quora for a year. And so this was 2015 to 2016, or no, sorry, 2014 and 2015 was when I worked as a software engineer. And this was already at a point in the market where ML engineers, as they were called, or like machine learning engineers, made more than software engineers. So that was already like the market state at that point. I went to these summer camps that were organized by rationalists, the rationality community in San Francisco. So and they were for precocious teens, but they were organized by many people who have become pivotal in the AI industry. So one of the organizers is this guy, Paul Cristiano, who who's the inventor of RLHF, actually. And now he's a research director at the US AI Safety Institute. He was at OpenAI for a long time. Greg Brockman came and gave a speech at one point. Eliezer Yudkowsky came and gave a speech at one point. And actually, I was very, like, when I was, I don't know, must have been 16, I was exposed to this concept that, like, potentially the most important thing to work on in my lifetime was AI and AI safety. So something I was exposed to very early on. So then when I went to MIT, started at MIT when I was 18. I like studied AI quite deeply. That was most of what I did in the sort of day job. And then kind of got antsy, applied to YC. And then the idea was kind of like, okay, initially it was like, okay, where can you apply sort of like AI to things? And this was in the era of chatbots, which is like crazy to think about, actually, that there was like this like mini chatbot bubble.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
in
Yeah.
In 2016, which was, I guess, spurred by Magic, right? Or some of these apps, and Facebook had a big vision around chatbots. And anyway, there's this little mini chatbot boom. So the initial thing that we wanted to work on, and was chatbots for doctors, right?
Which is like a funny idea, because do you guys know anything about doctors?
And yeah, no, not at all. Like basically no. It was just sort of like, oh, doctors are a thing that sound expensive, and so, and I think it's like indicative of like, I mean, I don't know, you guys see this all the time, but I feel like most of the times young founders, like, first 10 ideas are like, oh, first of all, they're very mimetic, so they're probably like, there's a lot of like the same ideas over it. There's like a dating app, there's like something for like, social life, there's the same ideas. And then I think that, like, I think young people have a very poor sense of alpha. Like, what are the things that they're actually like going to be uniquely positioned to do? And I think, most young people don't have a sense of self, so it's not clear. So when we were in YC, we were roommates with another YC company, and we were sort of observing this chatbot boom ahead of that was happening at the time. But it was very clear that, like, chatbots, if you wanted to build them, and this is funny to say in retrospect, required lots of data, and required lots of like human elbow grease, to be able to get them to work effectively. And so, like, just like kind of off the cuff at one point, I was like, oh, like, what if you just did that? What if you just did the data and the like language data and the human data, so to speak, for the chatbot companies? We were also very lost, by the way. I think you probably remember we were quite lost mid batch, and like many YC companies, I think. And so then we switched to this like concept. I think the initial idea was like API for human tasks or something along those lines. And one night I was just like trolling around for domains. Scaleapi.com was available, and then we just bought it. We launched it. I think a week later,
on Product Hunt.
Yeah.
I remember it. The Product Hunt page is still live. I was reading it last night, And I remember the tagline, it was an API for human labor. Like that's my recollection of sort of like the like distilled insight that you had was like, what if there is what if you could call a human with like an API?
Yeah, and that was, I mean, I think it was like 3 days for us to put up the landing page. It launched on Product Hunt. I think this idea captured some amount of imagination of the startup community at the time, because it was sort of like this weird form of futurism where you have like humans delegated, like APIs delegate to humans in this interesting
Yeah,
way.
it's like an inversion of the yeah.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
humans doing work for the machines instead of the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because the initial phase, we just worked with all these engineers who reached out to us from that Product Hunt, which was a real grab bag of use cases. But then that was enough for us to raise money at the time and and to get going. And then a few months after that, it became clear that like self-driving cars was actually the first major application that we needed to focus on.